we're not going to have the Q&A every time. So you're very lucky and privileged to be the first. And first of all, to echo what Harvey said, thank you for coming. And thank you, Harvey, for coming all the way down to do the Q&A for us.
All the way down from London.
And Harvey from Bruce Films, as he said, it's all self-funded, self-promoted, and a lot of gumption. So the passion for this project. You have a question first that you are.
No, everyone asks, why did you do it? And so I stopped waiting for that question. And I thought I'd answer it first off anyway. A couple of reasons. One, I've got an elderly mother myself who is recently, she's on her second hip. She's exceeding her 80s. And I see how, the problems she suffers, whether it be in terms of dealing with design or technology or anything to do with that, or just learning about life. But when I asked her to sort of do it, she didn't want to know, which is pretty much the answer that most people get from their own kind of relations. And at the same time, there's a documentary that's that's still available by Andrea Arnold on iPlayer now called Cow, and that's 24 hours in the life of a cow. And I thought, if you can do 24 hours in the life of a cow, you could do 24 hours in the life of someone who's elderly. And as I say, my mum wasn't willing to appear on camera, and I was always fascinated by these almshouses. Basically, I started off in magazines and transferred over to film about 8-9 years ago. And behind where Hopton's are is a building called the Blue Fin, which had a heap of magazines when there was a magazine industry. And when we moved into there, you could look down on Hopton's, and I always wondered who lived there. But at the same time, you saw that area change, and you saw the regeneration, you saw the luxury apartments grow up, the tower blocks, and that gradually over time, they became dwarfed, as in what they are now. It's run by a charity called St Saviour's that came out. It's sheltered housing, and then basically it's affordable sheltered housing. No one can simply kind of walk in and say, I'll give you £1,000 a week, which is what it would be to rent something like that. And so I met with the residents over 2 or 3 times, and there are 20 cottages there. There were about 18 residents living there when I did. Some didn't want to appear in it, and basically those that did, I filmed. There wasn't an agenda. The story of Hopton visually tells its own story. I always say this, so it's probably boring if anyone's heard of any radio things, but it did remind me of Up, the Disney film Up, in terms of they sit, surrounded, as I say, by these high rises. But as a journalist, I thought visually it told the story of regeneration and change in society, and I thought if you spent enough time with the residents, then their own stories would come out.
The traffic's back to the old days.
Is it really? Yeah.
really bad.
Well, anyway, I was going to wait, and I thought I could be here forever waiting for a bus. So I started walking.
It wasn't. It's a natural ending. But the difficulty is about modern making documentaries these days. If you watch Netflix, etc., people want to know the ending before it starts. My favourite documentaries, like Grey Gardens, etc., you don't know the ending. I've been shooting one at the minute, or it's finished, but I've been shooting over 5 years. So in answer to that, endings naturally occur. That's life, and this is what the thing is about. It's just life, and people's lives are interesting, and they do matter, and they do make a difference, and it's kind of nice. I've got another screening tomorrow in London, and it's kind of perversely on my side. It's kind of nice to put these people who are ignored and their stories are ignored up on screen and to shine a light on them. And it does bring up issues. There are issues there raised about how society treats the elderly and what society can do. But one of the issues society has is that we don't treat the elderly all the same. and one of the big things of this, that I wanted to be an antidote to the very good work that they do in Age UK and charities, etc., but to show, to use a popular phrase at the moment, that 360 of people, you know, they have had lives, they have, you know, sex lives, drugs, so they do think about, you know, a death, etc., etc. But the ending, at the same time, I wanted it to be uplifting at the end. Hopefully it is, because I think, like as Terry points out in it, he talks about it, is that you're only lucky if you get older, and it's not all misery, and it's not all pity, and it's not, you know, like everyone's life as they go along. Individuals become old, but we seem as a society to kind of want to not address that fact until it's too late.
Absolutely, and I mean, and that's one of the reasons you argued hard for the film not to start on the silver screen slot. So our Thursday morning slot is our silver screen. But I think that's a really brave decision, and it's really great you're here. It's like, it's not just for older people to see. And I was having that discussion this lunchtime pre the film. It's like, all those films, do we always have to just see ourselves reflected? But actually this is ourselves reflected, but you have to come through the cinema doors and pay your ticket.
There's a rough time ahead. See the blackened faces of our camouflage and the glint to the eyes of the simple beneath.
I take it they obviously saw it themselves.
Yeah.
What did they feel?
That obviously we did. I say we. When I say we, it's me basically.
The royal we.
There was a premiere which was in Borough Yards down in Borough Market, and that that obviously for me, you've got a responsibility to them all, you know, and with a film like this is trying to get the tone right, because it's funny watching. This is the smallest audience that I've watched it with, and it's funny to see how people react to the different beats in the film, because obviously I know when they're coming, when people laugh and when they don't, and I say in a small one, I wonder kind of like if it's easy to laugh when there's more people, or etc. And one of the things was I didn't want people laughing at them.
No.
So it is an emotional roller coaster, as I say. You know, some points I still well at myself. Seeing the people, there's certain things where obviously there's so many of them in this one. It's kind of like I was worried, you know. And then some couldn't make it, and then their family came. There was another secondary community screening of the Tate, and John, who hasn't made it to a screening yet, his daughter came along. I wondered what she felt, and she was quite emotional, and she brought the grandchildren as well to it. But thankfully the response has been great from them. I don't know what I'd do otherwise.
There's one at the back.
So I want to ask, were they at any point in your long interviews with them, were they angrier about the destruction of London around them and the mushrooming of all the high-rises? I mean, I know that area. I've taken photographs.
Yeah.
Known people who lived in Peabody. I'm an ex-Londoner, like many of us here. But the relentless destruction of London, they seem very serene about it, and I thought, God, that's amazing, because I'm not when I go into London. I get really...
I think there was angry. I wouldn't describe it as anger.
Right.
But in terms of, do they like what's happening? No. Some of them, probably overwhelmingly, Mick was the anomaly. He actually loved the buildings. Mick, he lived on the boat, He liked the idea. Everyone else, I'd probably say, didn't like the idea. They didn't accept it, and there are sort of campaigns ongoing with regards to that. With the last bit, with a film like this, as I say, and it's not the reason why I say there was no agenda, because there are lots of issues that come up. That's one of those issues, and it's kind of how far you hope. Maybe I didn't achieve it. Actually, you touch upon those things. To do, if you wanted to go down and make it that film, I think it's a different documentary. That was my feeling. And there's lots of, and I think you can touch upon a lot of the issues and themes that are raised in there. Aspects of health and the NHS and how you're doing, how etc. And and hopefully, as I always say, it's not a campaigning film. Someone said to me, "What?" And another screening, it's not political, and I wish I'd come up with this answer at the time, which I didn't. But it's actually its existence. It is political itself, because it's getting people, hopefully, to look at this and think about the elderly generation in this country who wouldn't normally think. So.
Yeah, I mean, just to follow, I mean, there's a lot of resonance with Hastings, I think, and that sort of more political side about gentrification and the down from Londons. So we thought that would resonate as well, but also it's a very gentle film, is how I experience it. Quite a lot maybe to do with the music, but also the protagonists have a lot about acceptance, and so it's interesting it's not political, because that in a way would make it a kind of sexier sell. So it's it's another hard sell.
Absolutely,
it's everyday people, and it doesn't have any kind of edgy angle. So I mean, I'm a big advocate of like Velvet Revolutions, and it's like, but it's a hard sell to not have the big explosive politics or issue, so again, well done for like not following a kind of formula.
Thinking about John, because you assess your own work as it goes along. When John talks about losing his wife and how he's living now, and when I was watching it just then, it just occurred to me, it's kind of like I was thinking, you could have made the cut there, and you could have made the cut there. But the difference, and I say it's the privilege of me doing it, it's my thing, but basically by letting him, there's more power in letting him roll on. Yeah. And you felt how he felt. Yeah. Not just the fact that he's obviously a big man who came from a family of dockers and stuff like that, but that feeling of losing someone, which I think in a different environment and on a network thing, you'd have had the cut. Yeah. You'd have had the cut much earlier.
It's like
you can be happy and sad at the same time. Some of my childhood was hell on earth. Some of my childhood was absolutely delicious. So you learn to mix and to take what you can cope with. The rest you let go.
You allowed it to unravel rather than Hitchcockian kind of editing that is more you're in control of the narrative. It's very much, the organic narrative came from the subjects.
You are in control of the narrative, I'll be honest with you. Exactly. Overarching. That's documentary making. You are controlling to a degree. You are taking it somewhere. Hopefully give enough space. For them to live as characters as opposed to sound bites.
But at what stage do you know where you're taking it then? Is it because you said you went in and you didn't know the place? So.
Yeah, my background as a journalist and an editor, and I spent 2 decades editing and interviewing celebrities ranging from Beyonce to George Clooney to from magazines like Marie Claire and Elle and Vogue and things like that before I sort of switched over, which wasn't an easy switch, it still isn't. And that is something actually, because you're used to, in that environment as a journalist, is you're in and you're out. I've got the story and you run away and then they're great, you know, and that's, you know, whether that be in magazines or that be in newspapers. And so it is a real change. And it also, with age and experience, I know the story will come. Interestingly enough, before I started that, and I'm in the middle of this 5-year one where I've been shooting for 5 years, and it wasn't intentionally 5 years. And at the same time, I was trying to get funding and people interested. And the first thing, going back to what I said before, was the question, where's the ending though? What's the ending? And I thought, oh God, yeah. And I was thinking, I'm going to manufacture this ending. I'm not going to tell you. But then it's a different mind. Then you've got to switch your mind and you get the end. A natural ending will come. That's life.
Has it changed you as a person at all?
We'll come to you.
Sorry.
Exactly the question.
Well, there's a change. There was a piece in the Telegraph, and I wish I had a really a clear answer on that.
Could you just repeat the question again? So I'm not sure everyone heard.
Has it changed you as a person?
I'm in denial as much as everyone about aging, you know? I think it's made me think about aging, and that we talk about acceptance that Seamus talked about at the end. I think it changes you about making the most of your life. Think about things that matter. I think absolutely.
So I think probably we've got time for maybe one more question. Yeah.
Okay, one more question, but so many comments and observations, and I just absolutely loved it. And I think your comments about it not being political, I think I'm not quite so sure about that, because it is a reflection of us. It is the us we are to become, and I loved that they're all so individual, so distinct, like observing their household, their furniture, what they're wearing. I think that's important, and I think it's important for people who are not elderly, and I wasn't quite sure about that terminology either, because I didn't feel like any of them were elderly. But it's important that we see ourselves in the future and understand, particularly someone who's in their early 50s, that we've got so much longer to go that maybe people 40 years in the other direction didn't think they had that far to go as well. But actually my burning question is, did John live there with his wife? Were there couples that lived there?
Yeah. So yeah, and like he said in the start, his parents lived there before he did.
Oh yes, that's right.
I mean, it's got an interesting, but that's just sort of going back to the point you made before. One of the motivations for me, and maybe it's getting older and stuff, I think, is capturing this history, because you know this is the last generation who kind of grew up during the war, and you'll find things as well in the way sort of John speaks, you know, on his own. My dad was only about your stamp or stuff like that. This is disappearing, and once those and in the extreme, it's like Jenny telling us like that we were brought up to rule the world. There won't be that many people in a few years' time or whatever who for the rights and wrongs of that, you know, whatever. But he will say these kind of things, or have those experiences. So it is about documenting to a degree. As I say, there are lots of different things, but that's one of the motivations, is to save that history, because it's there. We talk about Hobson's is the way in. Hobson's Almshouses, the physical buildings, is the way in, but it's their stories that matter.
It's
Because
opens up more questions than we have today.
There aren't any answers.
But it's a really, really good point, and thank you thank you all so much. It was
thanks a
wonderful,
lot.
intimate Q&A. And just
lovely.
to join us in thanking Harvey for those insights behind the stories behind the actual documentary, and
Thank
hopefully
you.
can spread the word.